The final part of the vocal production process would be the vocal mix. So it sort of depends on the track and the producer, but sometimes a producer will want the dry stems, in which case we would do the editing and comping, and then we would send it completely dry, all the stems, before adding any vocal chain or anything. Some producers want them wet, so they want our vocal chain on it, which is probably the most common thing we do, more than just dry. Most producers will want you to do what you know sounds good for your voices, so we'll usually do that. Or what we did in this case is we will actually do the vocal mix fully and then send a full a cappella that they can then add to the instrumental for the final mix. So yeah, do you want to talk about the... basically we've got 6 buses on each track here, each with a reverb on it. So what a bus does is it takes the audio that you've got that you're playing in a track and it sends it, hence the name bus, to that. And on those buses you can put any effects plugins you want. So on these we've got reverbs. So you can see we've got a reverb there. So what that means is, and if you look at the amount that is getting sent here, we've got this first one to say -16, -17. That is the amount of the audio that's getting sent to that. So much more control than if you just put a reverb plugin straight onto your vocal chain, because then it's 100% no going back, you can't control it. But a bus means that you can put it on really slightly or absolutely full if you want and control it a lot more. That's all a bus does. And the nice thing about that is if you send all of the vocal tracks to the same bus, or the same buses, it's going to sound like a more sort of, it'll sound like they're all in the one room. So all that reverb will be getting put on the vocals collectively rather than each individual track.
It's also a lot less processing power for your computer to deal with, because if you were to put a reverb plugin on every track, that could be 10, 20, 30
Good luck.
plugins. But doing this, you put one plugin and it can deal with all the tracks.
Yeah, and the other thing we've done for every one of these is we also put an EQ on, and we just basically put a low cut on just to stop it getting too muddy in the mix. So you want the reverb itself to actually be quite high end so that it doesn't mud the mix too much. Do you want to talk about what the different reverbs are?
So the first one we have that we put on is a sort of ambience that's a really short reverb, so 0.13 seconds. Basically what this does is it makes it sound like an interesting room that you've recorded in or whatever. So a slight bit of reverb, but it doesn't really sound like that. So we'll just compare with and without to hear what this one does.
I don't have the answer. I don't have a way to find. I'm falling away because every time you're stuck.
So you can hear that, it makes it sort of sound like you're in a nice sounding room. So the thing you get a lot with studios and recording, if you've treated your room really well, there won't be any background noise, so it can sound quite dead and not very interesting. This makes it sound like you've recorded in a really nice room. The second one is more of the same basically. We've got a slightly longer one, half a second, so that adds half a second noise of the echo onto the end of that basically, the reverb. So we'll add this one as well.
I don't have the answer. I don't have a way to find. I'm falling away because every...
So you can hear that, it sounds like a room sort of reverb, but it's so much more controlled, and that's what everyone uses. You can't mimic that in a room, so it's much easier to get the room sounding perfect and then add the reverbs after. The third one we've got is a longer one. These work, everyone gets longer. So what we mean by a long and a short reverb, if you've got a long reverb, basically sounds really echoey. Think like being in a church, you say something, the reverb lasts for ages. So this one's 1.5 seconds, so the reverb lasts 1.5 seconds after. All of these are presets in Logic. If you use the stock reverbs or Valhalla, or this is more FabFilter stuff, they're all very similar. And you get a lot of presets, so you can see in here ambient, small, medium, there's tons. We never usually really need to adjust these. You can change a lot of the settings and try it out if you want, but we find having a lot of them, and again a lot of people will use some less reverbs than this. We find using small amounts of lots of them makes it sound really nice and blends together nicely.
More subtle.
Yeah. So this one makes it sound more like a hall as well.
Don't have the answer. I don't have a way to find. I'm falling away because...
Yeah, that starts sounding a lot more sort of cool, and again, when you've got all the reverbs on, it can sound too reverby, but always listen in the mix. So play the instrumental with these after we've got them on to hear what it sounds like. The next one's another longer one. We're up to 2.9 seconds, so this is a more Hall sort of sounding. So this again,
I don't have a way to find, I'm falling away cause...
And you hear that start sounding a lot more reverby. The next one's quite a long one. We've got 4 seconds, so that does last quite long, so have this one on slightly, but it can just make it sound much more professional. If you've got a really full sounding instrumental so that the vocals don't get lost, having quite a few reverbs can really bring them out.
Don't have the answer, I don't have a way to find, I'm falling away.
And you can hear really at the end of each phrase the last part drags on quite a bit, so if it's too much, bring it down. If you don't think you need it, you can take some out. So sometimes for a verse you'll have less reverb than you will in the chorus to add that to make it sound bigger again. This last one that's always really good to have on vocals is a delay. So we've got 2 seconds after it lasts, and it's a 16th note. So basically this comes in as a delay. So we'll play this on its own to show you the difference between a delay and a reverb.
I don't have the answer, I don't have a way to find.
So if you hear it comes in a sort of a second after you've done that, and again it can just make it sound more full. So obviously if you have this too loud, it'll just sound out of time.
I don't have a way to find,
but having that on really slightly can make your vocal sound a lot more full, and when you have all 6 of these together, it sounds really nice.
I don't have the answer, I don't have a way to find,
and yeah, that's the reverbs we put on. That's the sort of first step of mixing your vocals.
And then the other part of mixing is essentially getting the noise levels right. So this is just sort of one of those things that you just have to constantly refer between the full instrumental with the mix and the just playing everything and hearing how it all fits together. A general rule is that the lead vocal is going to be louder than anything else. And it sort of just depends stylistically on the song. For some stuff, you want the backing vocals to be really upfront so that it sort of hits you like a wall of sound. And for other stuff, you want the backing vocals to be really subtle. So, for example, here you can see what we've done to get the pre-octaves nice and subtle is we've got a single lead vocal and then we've got a left and a right. So we've panned this 30 left and right for the octave so that it fills out the space a little bit, and it should just feel quite satisfying when that comes in. And it means that lead vocal is right down the middle, and that's the only thing that's cutting through. And then what we've done is we've got them both quieter than the lead, so it sounds like this.
Feeling your temptation, no more hesitation.
So you can hear it's very subtle. They're not really hard panned, but it just makes it feel much wider. So again, it feels like we've gone from that verse which is just a single vocal to just expanding a little bit for the pre-chorus.
It's also another way to make the backing vocals stand out more. If you think that they don't come out enough but you've already got them turned up quite loud, often panning them a bit more is what you need rather than just turning the volume up, because the volume, they'll still get lost if they're in the same place as the lead vocal, but if they're panned more, they'll stand out without being as loud.
Yeah. And then panning essentially is just when you're choosing for this chorus here, because we've got quite a lot of parts, so much of it is just playing around with it until it feels good, until it sounds good. There's not really a right or wrong. A general rule to go by is you want your lead vocal down the middle. And then what we've done here for the double and triple track of the lead, we've panned that quite hard left and right, 40. So if we just listen to that on its own, it should just feel pretty full. And again, like we talked about earlier, it feels like there's just a nice widening effect on that.
You know you break me down, I can't get out.
And then what we've done with the other parts is we've essentially just slotted them in. So the for example, the octave here is actually more is less panned than the double track and triple track of the lead part. So what that does is it sort of just makes this, if you think of it as a 360, you want it to just feel as full as possible, especially in that chorus, because that's the biggest part of the song. So what we've basically done is we've got the left and right for the lead parts, and then we've got this sort of, the octaves are slotting in between, so it just creates this nice full sounding effect.
And also balancing it out. So if you've got a harmony that's double tracked, you want one in the left, one in the right. Usually we'll do the same amount to the left. So if you've got one panned minus 30 to the left, you'd want the other one 30 to the right.
Yeah.
So that you don't have all of one harmony on one side and all of one on the other.
Yeah, unless again if you were making a stylistic choice for that. But yeah, we would probably tend to avoid doing that. I try as well the little one that's just emphasising. We've kept that pretty close to the middle, so it's quite subtle, but it just separates it a little bit. And then the harmonies are much more panned, the vocoder style harmonies, and that just really brings them out. And it means again that you've got that feeling when you listen to the chorus, it feels like it's really expanded, and it just feels more exciting because it's just opened up. So if we contrast the pre, so the verse has just been one, and then if we contrast this pre into the chorus, it should just hopefully feel like it really opens up. So the pre has just opened a little bit because we've got the octaves, and then it just gets bigger, and it's not just about making it louder, but it's also about the width.
Give an indication, no interpretation. I try, just tell me I'm not wasting my time. You know you break me down, I can't get out, but I try. Tell me I'm not wasting my time.
And you can hear there that it was a conscious decision to make the backing vocals quite loud. The chorus is essentially just a group of vocals. There is a lead part, but it's pretty much just a group of vocals.
And again, in this, with the mix, the thing that makes the lead one isn't that it's really loud, but it's down the middle, and everything around that's the backing vocals. And if you listen closely with good headphones, you can really hear it almost sounds like some of the voices are behind, some are to the left, and it just makes it sound a lot more full and interesting to listen to.
Yeah, but that's the sort of general thing that we go for with the chorus. You want the chorus to be the biggest part of the song, so therefore probably the widest in terms of where the panning goes, and also in terms of the loudness of the backing vocals. The backing vocals in the verses and pre's tend to be a lot more quiet and subtle. So we'll just play that chorus actually from the full version of the song to see how it feels and it sounds.
I try, just tell me I'm not wasting my time. You know you break me down, I can't get out, but I try. Tell me I'm not wasting my time. You know you break me.
So you can see there that you can't really pick out exactly what all the different backing vocal parts are doing. It just sounds like one big full sounding sort of track, which is exactly what we wanted to go for.
And if they weren't there, you would notice.
Yes, it would be very underwhelming. So that's the sort of general rule with mixing, is that know when to keep it subtle and when you want it to be really full on and upfront. And yeah, you can use reverb as well to help it blend in the mix.
Yeah. And you can also go on later on, if you've done all of this, it should sound almost there, but similarly to mastering for a full track, if you're sending a full bounce of your vocal part to a DJ to work with, in here in the stereo out part, you might want an EQ to just put a low cut on it, or dip some mids if it sounds a bit muddy, or boost the highs if you don't think it's bright enough. It's always fine, but it's always so much easier to work with the final version of it if you've been really careful throughout. But in the final stages you can always do that, or add a compressor to round the vocals out more. Bring that ratio down potentially, low with quite a high threshold on that, low ratio, maybe a slower attack, and you can boost the gain a bit to change the sort of levels. So if this sounds too quiet at the end before you bounce it, you can always make it a bit louder, or add a limiter, which you can get in Logic, or again we use FabFilter ones, that basically just, you can make it louder or quieter, that you use for mastering. So you can always add stuff at the end once you've finished it if you don't think it's quite there.
Yeah, the mastering is not really our forte, but by adding a limiter, particularly if we've been sent an instrumental and we're sending our idea back, we'd definitely put a limiter on it to make it as loud and as exciting as possible when someone listens back to it. And then we would usually do the bounce without a limiter, so that they can then put it into the instrumental, and then it would be mastered after that when it's all finished. I think we've kind of covered everything there.
Should be, hopefully.
Yeah, so hopefully you've learned something from this, from our ramblings. Thanks a lot for watching.
Thank you.